Also, hi, Bebop. How you doing? As I accidentally called you before Bebo. The reason why I thought your name was Bebo at first is because I had literally, after, like, just before the stream, I had taken a shower and I was listening to Wendigoon's video about that guy that hijacked that plane in Seattle. And then he, like, took it for a joyride and all that. The guy's nickname was Bebo. I'm like, Bebo. Also, don't hijack a plane. I wouldn't even know where to start with the plane. Look, just check the War Thunder forums. You'll find all sorts of guides there for anything you need. I also had a little tangent, because I was just thinking about it the other day. There was like some big meeting with Congress with the CEO of TikTok where these absolute boomers were asking all of these questions. Literally right after that, like after that Congress meeting, there was another leak of like some government document on like a War Thunder Discord server where some guy was like being flamed by other like 12-year-olds on Discord. So he's like, oh yeah, well I have the schematics for this thing. And they're like, no you don't. And they're just like flaming him. Then he fucking posts it. These secret like government documents and all that. And it's like, we just had this meeting about TikTok. I cannot wait for the next meeting with the Discord CEO where this same discussion happens with all those members of Congress asking the Discord CEO about that. Who are we sending an ambassador if Congress wants to interrogate futures? I'm assuming you mean furries. I don't think you can. That's the thing. There is no like CEO or king or ruler or president of the furry fandom, which thank God. But if they were to interrogate furries, I kind of like to think of it the same way as like, say there's a big podcaster or some big influential name that wants to learn more about furries and wants to have them on like a talk show or like their podcast or some segment where they talk about furries. I'm sure they would probably ask whoever has the most followers at the time on Twitter. That is probably my best guess. Which even then, I would like to say, if I was on like some sort of talk show or podcast about furries, like as some sort of, I guess, representative, I hate that. I hate using that word with regards to furry because it's a fucking hobby. It's a hobby. It is something fun you partake in. This right here, what I'm doing is part of furry, but it's also Twitch, which is a hobby, which I guess for me it's my life job and all that. But regardless, point being, look, furry's weird. I'm just here as a guy. And so that's why, like, if I were to be on one of those podcasts, one, I'd want to make sure that they're not trying to turn it on me. I'd like do my research. I'd like read the contracts and all that. Second thing, if they did do that, I would make sure I know how to respond properly to it. And three, also, I probably wouldn't want to go on that podcast or talk show sort of thing. I'm just saying. As nice as it would be, I don't know if I really want to be strictly tied to that, you know? Like example, a collab that I did semi-recently. I did an interview video with Condensed Nuts. If you remember Condensed Nuts, they went to Anthem, New England last year. I think they went this year, but they did a whole like video interview, which was really good. It was a really, really, really good video. They ended up asking me to do a collab with them for an interview because they're doing like segments, learning more about the furry community from like their audience that they're trying to build up and build into it. And I said, absolutely. I will absolutely help you with that. Reason being is because they came into furry, even though it was, you know, they still joked about it because there's things to joke about with furry. They came into it with honest intentions to come in and enjoy the community. And whether or not they're a furry and want to take part in it, they were respectful of it. They were respectful of the attendees there. They didn't impede on anyone else's time. And so that's why when I saw that video and saw their demeanor, and when they reached out to me to ask for like an interview for some sort of video, I was like, absolutely. On my flight to FWA, there was an old lady asking someone questions about the con, and these were normal ass questions. Do you have a character? Do you have a suit? What kind of character? What are you doing at the con? That's what I love that. That is so heartwarming. I don't like using this word like normal person because that can lead to many different assumptions, but that's just like normal questions. Normal people ask those questions. It's very, very simple, and I love that. Talk about like the stitching work, the fine details, the one thing or the many things that you wanted right or correctly with regards to your character. You know, like everyone has that little thing they want that's like super perfect about their character, representative on their fursuit or on their ref sheet or something. Go into detail about that. I think that is an awesome question. Actually, you know what? That might be a good idea. Maybe put together a list of questions that interviewers, whether you're in furry or not, could ask furries at furry conventions that are valid and really deep, enriching questions to ask where you can learn more about the community. Not just how much does your fursuit cost, but what What is one thing you really wanted perfectly about your fursuit that you had your fursuit maker put emphasis on? What makes it cost as much as it is? What does your character mean to you? Why did you choose this fursona species? So many questions that you can ask that aren't just like, oh, how much does your suit cost? And that's it. There's so much more you can ask. I know, like, we're already, like, furry conventions I've seen have done a lot better of a job at managing those who want to come into conventions and interview them. There are like media badges that are like given out now for people wanting to do like interviews. I think A&A did that this year. Like there are like media badges, you go to con ops, you go to con staff to make sure you have permission to be filming and asking other attendees questions. But some people do want to go on and do like actual interviews and videos about a convention when they're not naturally like part of the community, or they're just an attendee looking to interview furries. There are like media badges that you can get. Like that's why the amount of times, like in the past few conventions I've been to, and this is like before COVID and all that, there were the occasional interviewers that would come by. And I knew if anyone was coming by to interview furries that I didn't see some announcement from it from the con or anything on Twitter, I was not talking to them. If I saw someone come up to me with a microphone and a camera and I didn't know who they were, I'm walking away. I'm not saying one goddamn thing. And I had to do that a bunch of times. There was like one guy who was like this parody pastor, like Jesus preacher guy back at Anthro, Ohio 2019 who got kicked out of the con. He was like the big flavor of the week, like problematic interviewer, harassing furries many, many different times. I was like going around with my friend Lumi and they were fursuiting around and they had been stopped by this guy to ask some questions. I'm like, no. And I just grab Lumi and I just like keep walking him to the elevators to our room. Like, no, absolutely not. And turns out that guy was bad news. Just some context clues that you can kind of understand if you're ever in a position where you're going to be interviewed. You know, understand who it is that's interviewing you. Don't answer any questions if they make you uncomfy in the slightest. And especially look for that media badge. They usually have those media badges on their lanyard, I think.